This is me. My name is Shane Felipe Linder. This is a summary of my ministry and my background. In this video, I'm going to share with you a little about my background. I have written an autobiography that's about 500 pages long. I'm not going to get into that much detail. I'm not exactly sure how long this video will be. I'm hoping it'll be around 30 minutes, although it could stretch a little further than that. Let me tell you a little bit about myself and my ministry. My ministry, to summarize it in one word, I would say, is friendship. The people I work with, I really make friends with. And I think it's a mutually beneficial relationship. It's not like some rich man that is handing money to a beggar that is in need, and then the beggar goes off and the rich man doesn't see him, and the rich man does not benefit from giving money to the beggar. When I work with people, I benefit from the relationship. It is a friendship. I do not think of that person as being lesser than me or inferior than me in any way. I think that we are all broken people. Every one of us is broken. And when I look in the mirror, I see somebody that is broken. And I work with people that have issues in life, and it could be addiction, alcoholism, it could be anxiety, depression, divorce, trauma, problems with sexuality in their marriage, whatever the case might be. That is what I work with people. I went to college and got my master's degree in family counseling at a Seventh-day Adventist University in Mexico. The friendship theme, I think, is a very important thing to understand. I have friends, and when I work with people, the people that I work with become my friends. So that is the starting of it. People in life, we have necessity for two basic things in life, and that is friendship and power. And I have found that power comes from two sources, and that is God and knowledge. And those two things are related. I do not give advice to people that I work with. I do share knowledge with them. I oftentimes will share information with them that they don't know. And I will ask questions. In this video, I'm going to tell you a lot about myself. And if you become my friend, I'll ask questions and I'll get to know a lot about you. We connect. People connect by sharing stories. This video, I'm going to share your story. But until you share your story with me, we really haven't connected. And that's what a friendship is friends sharing their story with each other. I ask questions of my friends that often they don't answer themselves. I don't give advice because I believe the people that I work with, they hold the solution to their problems. I just help them find that solution. And I do that by providing them information and asking them questions. So, what is my ministry all about? It's about friendship. Now let's jump into this video and I will share with you my background. Okay, well, I was born, it's got to start at the beginning, right? I was born in Sioux City, Iowa. We actually lived over in Nebraska. So my mother crossed the border into Iowa when she gave birth to me. On the left side of the screen here, you'll see my great-grandmother, Carlson. Now, she was the first to convert into Seventh-day Adventism. Okay, so I am a fourth-generation Adventist, and there she is holding her great-grandchild. And on the right-hand side, you will see me at my first birthday, and there I am with my dad. During that first year of life, we did move out to Utah. So I was living in Nebraska, born in Iowa, and quickly moved out to Utah. And it didn't take too long. We moved to Iowa, back to the city where I was born. Go back into my heritage a little bit. On the left-hand side of the screen, you'll see that is my grandfather Philip. Now, you might have seen at the beginning of this video in quotation marks, Felipe. Well, Felipe is the name that I go by in the Spanish-speaking community. And my middle name is actually Philip, and I was named after my grandfather Philip. He was an airplane mechanic during World War II, and he served in the Pacific, where we were fighting against the Japanese. So I do go by Shane in English, and I go by Felipe in Spanish. It's kind of like the Apostle Paul, that he switched from going by Saul to Paul, and it really wasn't a name switch for him. Saul was his Hebrew name, and Paul was his Roman name. And so when he started ministering to the Gentiles, he went by his Roman name. And so in the same way, I go by Shane when I am ministering to people in English, and I go by Felipe when I am ministering to people in Spanish. On the right-hand side, we see my grandfather Joseph. That was my father's father. So Grandpa Philip was my mother's father, and Grandpa Joseph was my father's father, and he was a farmer. Grandpa Philip was a TV repairman, and in fact, he had the first television, or one of the first televisions in Minnesota. He actually owned a television before the television waves were being broadcast. So he was there to watch the very first broadcast of television in Minnesota. He was on the cutting edge of that technology at that time. Just to give you an idea of my background and where I come from, my grandpa Joseph, as I said, he was a farmer, a very avid hunter. He had many children. I think there was like 15 of them altogether. And he died in his 50s from asthma. Here, my father is sitting on the left-hand side of the screen, and that is my grandpa Joseph. So they are sitting together by the car. This is my father in 1953. He was a guitar player, and he was in a band when my mother met him. So there's some musical ability there. This here, my mother and father divorced when I was young, and she remarried this gentleman that's in this picture in the bluish suit, if that's, I guess that's blue. And the little boy in front of him is my younger brother. We call him Beaver. His name is Arthur. He's named after his dad. And then I am to the far right-hand side. That is me there. These three girls in the back are my sisters. They were from my mother's first marriage. Then to my mother's right, there's a little girl there in like a white and green dress, and that is my little sister, Nikki. And all the way off to the left is my brother, Rob. And the gentleman in the brown suit there was my sister Melody's husband at the time that the picture was taken. This was taken in 1978. This is the only picture that I am aware of that has all of my mother's children together. Now, my father had 5 children with his first wife, so altogether with us siblings, there are 12 of us, and my sister Rhonda, which is in this picture, standing right behind my stepfather Art there, she passed away from cancer some years ago. Okay, so we're going to click on through this, and off to the left here, that picture is taken in 1983. I was in 7th grade. I was, at this point, I was just getting into drinking and drugs. I was raised in a Seventh Adventist home, and I was attending Seventh Adventist schools. And at this point in 1984, you can see that most of my siblings are gone. It's just my younger brother Beaver there and my sister Nicole, or we call her Nikki, and then my mother was standing behind us there. This is one of the only pictures, perhaps the only picture where I have long hair. My hair is behind my shoulders there, so you can't see actually how long it is. But on either side of my face, you can see that I had long hair. I was very much a stoner when this picture was taken. I was using drugs and drinking as much as I possibly could. I was going as fast. I had the pedal to the metal and seeing how fast I could take that car. I ran away from home not too long after that picture was taken, and we were living in Seattle, Washington at the time. I ran away, and this here was the house off to the left, the White House there that I lived in Amarillo for a while. And this picture was actually taken in the year 2020 when I went back and I found this house. So in the picture, I'm 50 years old, and when I lived in this house, I was 14 years old, and I had not seen the house since I was 14. So I went back to find my roots, to remember where I came from. This here is where I ended up. This is St. Joseph's Hospital, and I was committed to a psychiatric unit here. I was living on the streets, and I was picked up, arrested for being truant, and the police sent me home, and my mother committed me to a psychiatric ward for adolescents. And this was it. Now, this picture was taken in 2020, so when I was committed into this in 1984, that brown fence was not there in the front, and those trees were not as big. But this is where my road began, my road to recovery. I had dropped out of school, and as a result of getting clean and getting off from drugs, I went back to high school, and eventually I joined the Army National Guard. And here you can see my basic training picture, and then you can see a picture of me doing some training with the National Guard there. And I was a crane operator, so there I am sitting on what they called a rough terrain crane. This is a picture of it here. I was in a bridge building company, and that is the Mississippi. That is right up at the beginning of the Mississippi in northern Minnesota. We built a bridge, and it was a floating bridge. We built a bridge across that river. So there I am lowering a pontoon into the water. I went to Minnesota State University. It was called Mankato State University at the time. This was after I got out of high school, and I majored in construction management. While at college, I got a job as a crane operator. If you recall, I was a crane operator in the Army, so that's what I was doing as a civilian, working at a scrapyard, running a magnet, baling tin, and loading it into railroad cars. In 1991, I volunteered for active duty, and you might remember this was during the Persian Gulf War. They sent me to Panama. I was building bridges in the jungle, so you see in the lower right-hand corner of the screen is a picture of the base camp, all those tents, that's where we lived. And then off to the left is a picture of a bridge site where we were building a bridge, and that crane was the crane that I was operating. Come back from Panama, and I moved in with a friend of mine that I met in a recovery program, because when I was 16 years old, I got off drugs and alcohol, and I joined a 12-step recovery program, and I met this gentleman in there. Now, this gentleman, he had some problems. He was schizophrenic and bipolar, and so he kind of needed a caretaker. So I lived in his basement. He had a basement apartment. I lived in his basement, and I took care of him for 4 years while I studied at Mankato State University, or Minnesota State University. We became very, very good friends. He died of a heart attack not too long after I had finished college. Here on the left-hand side was my mentor during college. He attended the local Seventh-day Adventist church, and he was the advisor of my ministry at campus. He worked at the college that I went to school at, and he was our ministry advisor. Every student group has to have a faculty advisor, so he was our faculty advisor. And then on the right-hand side is a girl that I liked. I just threw her in here for a little flavor. No, but really, this girl was one of the reasons, not the only reason, of course, but one of the reasons that I learned Spanish, because her family started attending our church there in Mankato, and they couldn't speak English. I had spent some time in Panama. I'd already taken some Spanish courses in college. It was more difficult than I thought it would be until I'd given up on it. But this girl gave me reason to study it again. Not just her, but her family gave me reason to study it again. And I wound up going to the University of Guadalajara with a group of students and studying Spanish for a quarter there. I also, after that, I volunteered to be a missionary in El Salvador. I had some time off from school, So it was a month long, 1 month only that I was in El Salvador, but we were building an orphanage there, and uh, and that is where I met my. Uh, I started writing back and forth to her. I came home. She stayed in El Salvador. I got involved with the Spanish ministry. You can see in the lower right corner there, I was translating for a sermon that was being given. Pastor Zimmerman there is there. And then in the other picture where I have the guitar, that is my brother Beaver. He's a little older than the last picture we saw of him there, but he is there in that picture, and we were doing a worship service there at my mother's house while I was in college during this same period of time. Um, Eventually, my girlfriend came to the United States and we got married. Her name was Sophia. And we first got married in the court, and then when we could save up enough money, we had a church wedding. We moved to Texas not too long after that. At the time, I was in college in Minnesota, and I finished college, moved to Texas. And my son, Alex, as we see in the picture on the left, he was born in 2001. The picture on the right, you see Alex there again a couple years later. His sister, Shania, was born. During this time, I was working in construction as a construction manager. And here we see just a couple pictures, professional pictures of work. I was in commercial building construction, working both as an estimator and a project manager. We were doing missionary work across the border in Mexico. We lived on the border, on the Mexican-Texas border. And so the international bridge was just a few miles from our home, and we would drive down into Mexico and do work, missionary work there in Mexico. And we gained a lot of friends in Mexico, and we spent, I think it was 14 years doing missionary work in Mexico. During that period of time, we actually built this church. We had a group of volunteers that came down from Michigan. The church, I designed the church. I'm not an architect, but they were hard up, and so the desperate people can't be that picky, right? And so I drew up the church for them and designed it, and I did help. I was not there the day that all the volunteers came and laid all the block, but I helped with the foundation and then with the front facade, this little tower. It's a bell tower, actually, that is there. I helped with that. I have loved being a father. Pastor came to our church, or excuse me, to our home. Pastor from our church came to our home when I was younger, Pastor Jerry Christman, and our children were very young. And he talked to my wife and I about parenting, because neither my wife nor I really came from good functional homes where we had good examples of parenting. So we needed some advice, and I'm very fortunate that that pastor was able to give us some guidance, and we were able to give our children a good Christian home. We sent both of the children to Adventist school and partnered with the school and with the church to help us raise these children. The marriage did start experiencing problems after 15 years. And this was the last picture that was taken of our family while everyone was together and the family was functional. The picture is taken with my sister-in-law and her husband, and then that is their newborn baby there. I was able to give away my sister-in-law at her wedding when she married this gentleman. He works for the conference, the Seventh Adventist Conference in Panama, so he is a denominational employee, and she worked for him for a while until she started having babies. And her father, my wife's father, had passed away from cancer, and so she asked me to give her away at her wedding. I had been financially supporting her in college, helping her go to school, and I guess she felt a bond there, and that was probably one of the greatest honors that I've had in my life, was being asked to give her away. And so we always had a bond with this couple. In our will, we listed them as the godparents. So if something were to happen to my wife or I, they would be legally able to take our children to Panama where they lived, and the Social Security benefits would follow the kids. And fortunately, both of the children reached the age of 18 without anything happening to either of us. So They never had to fulfill that role. So the marriage started experiencing problems in 2012, and my wife decided she didn't want to be married anymore, and she decided that she didn't want to be a church member anymore. And so the children and I stayed together, and I took care of the children. I don't want to go into too many details about the divorce in this video, but I did. Excuse me. I was excuse me. I was awarded custody of the children, and I got into a co-parenting relationship with their mother. We would celebrate holidays together. We celebrate birthdays together. We were not adversarial. We did not avoid each other. Basically, we were parenting these children and putting our differences aside and making sure that there was a minimal amount or no conflict between us. And I think that worked out pretty well. Uh, the divorce was final in 2015, and I had a brief rebound relationship. I married my dentist. Her name was Irma, and I married her 30 days after my divorce was final. Not one of the better decisions that I made in my life. In fact, I would say of all the decisions that I've made in my life, deciding to use drugs and alcohol and thus becoming an addict, and deciding to get married so quickly after my divorce, those were probably what I consider the two worst decisions that I made in my life. Of course, I know that my judgment was compromised in both cases. I developed PTSD after my divorce, and I was suffering depression and anxiety, and she had children, and I had children. Our children, we all lived together in the same house, and they didn't get along, and it was a very brief marriage, and I called it quits. Yeah, so I don't want to spend too much time on that, but I was very hurt. Felt very rejected from the divorce when my wife left me, and I got into this relationship for the wrong reasons. Thinking that a new relationship would heal my wounds and fix my family, and I made a lot of bad decisions and got some bad advice. I didn't make the decisions on my own. I was seeing a counselor, and I was paying her $135 a session, so it wasn't a fly-by-night counselor. It was a licensed counselor, and I think she gave me some poor advice. She thought that I was ready to get remarried, or that's what she said, and it was an unfortunate incident. But this was my second wife, even though it was only a matter of months. This was my second wife. I was quickly a single dad again. So I was a single dad before. Well, I was a single dad even though I was legally married. I consider myself a single dad because for 3.5 years, the divorce went on with my first wife because of a custody battle. But we were separated, and I was parenting the children for 3.5 years, and then I had that brief rebound marriage, and then I was a single dad again. And this picture taken from that period of time, and I loved being a single dad. I'll tell you that. I was not lonely. I got some help for the PTSD that I was suffering, and I recovered from PTSD. It took me about a year, but I tested, and I was diagnosed with PTSD, and then a year later I tested again, and my score dramatically dropped. I recovered very well, and I responded very well to the treatment. So then I decided to go back to graduate school, and when I first moved to Texas, a counselor from this graduate school came to my home. He came to our church, and after being at the church, he came to our home and talked to my first wife and I. And he was studying at this university, and I really was impressed. And I wanted to go to the university then, but they didn't have an online program. Eventually, they developed an online program, and So in 2017, I applied. It took me 3 months of studying to prepare to take the entrance exam because it was a graduate entrance exam similar to the GRE that I had to take, but it was Spanish, all in Spanish. And so I had to take that entrance exam. It was very difficult, but I did get accepted. Here we see I was at the university. I went down there to take that entrance exam. On the right-hand side, you see that I'm over at the psychology department because that is where I studied. I got my master's degree in family counseling, and this is the Seventh-day Adventist University in Mexico. They have the seminary there. They also have a medical school there. They have a hospital, and in the country of Mexico, this hospital is a very prestigious country. A lot of celebrities and politicians go there for treatments. It is well thought of, and in the Spanish-speaking world, the name University of Montemorelos is well known. Now, in the English-speaking world outside of Texas, it's probably not that well known. But even within Texas, in the English-speaking world, people know, especially Seventh-day Adventists, they know about the University of Montemorelos. This was my mess, you might say, during my studying at Montemorelos. For the first couple years, I was here on the left side. I was at the kitchen table. And then after I finished the addition that I was building onto my home, I moved into the family room, and that's what you see on the right-hand side. So that was my virtual classroom and where I did a lot of studying. Okay. I got married then in 2019. I met Melds, or I call her Celine. I met her on an Adventist dating site, and we dated for 19 months. And during that period of time when we were dating, I was doing a lot of video chat with her. That is, I would go to church and I would do video chat so she could watch the church band play. She could hear us sing hymns. She could listen to the children's story. I took the kids on vacation to the Grand Canyon and I used video chat so she went down into the canyon with us. We went on another vacation to New Orleans and she went up the river on the riverboat with us through video chat. I would play my guitar and sing with her. We would do the Sabbath school lesson, study the Sabbath school lesson together. You know, she would go to her volleyball games and have friends video the volleyball games so I could see her play volleyball and basketball there. She was working in Lebanon at the time, and I flew over to Lebanon to meet her, and we got together and we got married. Here you can see my children. My son Alex was our best man, and Shania was the maid of honor. Immigration rules, of course, stipulate that we had to get married within the first 90 days. Eventually, it took a little while because the coronavirus pandemic came in and delayed us getting her son, JR, we call him. His name's Gabriel. It took us a while to get him over here, but eventually we got JR over here, and so that is our family there, and everybody's adults. We have no minor children in the home. Well, congratulations. If you made it all the way through this video, you know a lot about me. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I did write an autobiography that is available online from Amazon.com, and you can purchase that. The royalties from the books, and I have several books I've written that are online, the royalties for those books go to support Happiness Ministry. So if you purchase any of those books, you will be supporting my ministry. My ministry is about helping people through friendship. I hope that message has come across through this video. If you want to be my friend, you can go to my website, and that is www.postumcafe.com. Find out all types of information about me and my ministry and how you can contact me. God bless.